All right, afternoon, y'all. It's good to be back out on the field after last week. Got a good look at some guys during the game, and we're excited to go play Indianapolis this week and get another chance to evaluate and get better. So go ahead.
How has Nick Vigil done with Barr being out and calling the defense and taking on some of those responsibilities?
He's done a great job. He's really a smart guy, and he handles things really well. He's calm and collected during the game and during practices. So I think he's going to be a good addition to us as far as our communication and all those things. He's done a nice job.
Did he do that in Cincinnati? Was that his role?
Paul said he has had the green dot at times in the past. I don't know how often he did it, but he has done it before.
Adam, I said it was a terrific workout. How is he looking these days, and what could he potentially bring you guys if the decision maker brings him?
You know, I'm gonna leave that to Rick and the decision on that. I haven't really seen him, so he's up there meeting with those guys right now. So I'll let them handle that.
Adam, Justin Jefferson was talking yesterday about cornerbacks, specifically Patrick, helping him become a better receiver. How can cornerbacks help the receivers become better?
Well, I think they can teach you certain different press techniques. You know, there's a lot of ways to press a receiver. You know, you can motor, you can hard press them, you can be a little more soft on them. And so I think just picking his brain as far as which technique he would use against him because of the way he releases on his routes. And you know, Patrick's seen a lot of different receivers and a lot of different ways to cover guys. So I think that's great that he's learning from him.
Adam, you mentioned working with Paul Gunther. What has been his role, and how much have you worked with him just on defensive concepts and ideas?
Paul's been great for the room. We've come up with a lot of new good ideas that we think that we're going to like. He's a very creative guy. He has great ideas. You know, he helps out with all the position groups. He's worked with the D-line a little bit. He's worked with some of the linebackers on some of the new stuff we're doing. So he's been really valuable to the staff.
When you have a cornerback like Patrick, where he was, you know, this shutdown man-to-man corner who go toe-to-toe with any elite receiver earlier in his career, and then you get somebody who, you know, is with age, athleticism often sometimes declines. Like, how do you put him in a situation where he can kind of revive his career here in Minnesota as far as like schematically what you're asking him to do out there?
Right. I think you kind of during training camp you kind of see where he's at. Are his legs the same? Does he still have the same burst that he does, or do we need to modify the technique? Do we need to back him off a little bit on the line of scrimmage to give him more time, or do we need to be more hard pressed so we can disrupt the receiver? So those kind of things we're going through with him. I think he's really moved around really well in camp. He covered those good receivers yesterday pretty good, Thielen and those guys. So I think, you know, you just kind of feel where he's at as far as his ability level right now.
Is there stuff that, I mean, I know Terrence is playing in the slot, but is there stuff that you guys can take from how you help prolong Terrence's career almost till he's 40, and just kind of what that role and responsibility becomes with age? Right,
absolutely. You know, Terrence Newman didn't run 4.3 like he did at Kansas State when he was here, but he knew how to play to his strengths, which was his intelligence, anticipating routes, being more patient at the line of scrimmage, and making sure we're on top so that we can break downhill instead of having to chase all the time. So I do think that helps. And you know, we were just watching some tape of Terrence just right now, so and reminiscing how we used him.
Does zone coverage effectively let cornerbacks kind of rely more on the mental aspect?
Well, most of our zone coverage have a man with the corners anyway. They're pretty much man on those guys unless we're playing you know, too deep or something. So I don't think it's that much of a difference whether we're in 3 or man or anything like that.
Adam, since you've had Dalvin Tomlinson here, what have you kind of learned about him that maybe you didn't know from before just watching him on film?
Well, he's an extremely hard worker. He's in there all the time trying to get better, trying to master his craft. He's a big body in there, and you notice him, and he's really letting Kendricks and Barr and Nick and all the linebackers when they get in there behind him flow and make a lot of tackles that, you know, quite frankly we didn't have last year.
Pierce said yesterday the communication between three technique, the nose, and the mic is so important. Just everybody has to be on the same page. Maybe it's, you know, specifically against the run. What does that communication look like as far as who's responsible for what, like who relays what to what?
The communication part is mostly like setting the front where they're going to line up and our blitzes and all those things. I think it's more of an unspoken communication. It's all right. You get in this blocking scheme. The three technique's going to play here, so the linebacker has to play back, or he gets a double team. We need the linebacker to come downhill and take him off, so he doesn't have 700 pounds leaning on him. Things like that, and that's just from playing behind each other. It's kind of an unspoken communication.
Mike was pretty critical of the way the young safeties performed in the preseason game, particularly how they handle assignments, knowing who's up, who's down. How do you handle if a safety's doing pretty well in the meeting room, but not so well when the bullets are flying in the game? How do you handle coaching that in?
Well, we're having extra walkthroughs with not only the safeties but with the linebackers, so we know with every motion we get, we're putting them in those situations so they have to talk and they have to communicate. Because usually the young safeties do pretty good if they're in there with Xavier or Harrison, and then they get in there together and there's I'm down left or I'm down right, and that's what stuff we need to get cleaned up from the other night. So we've been having extra walkthroughs right before practice with the linebackers, trying to put them in as many situations as we can so that they can just do it and not think about it so much.
Where do some of those backup linebackers need to improve most from what you saw on Saturday?
Yeah, I thought we did some good things at the linebacker position. I thought Troy Dye did a nice job of calling the huddle, getting the pressures run. There was a lot of chaos behind him, and he also found the football. So I think he did a good job. As far as like Chaz and the other guys, they need to make sure we're honing in on our exact alignments and assignments, and so we're in the right spot all the time. Because there were a couple times we were lined up wrong, and that's why the play broke. So we got to get lined up in the correct spots.
Andre said that there were times when Patrick Jones was running the wrong defense and Troy Dye was the linebacker behind him. When that happens, how much is it on the linebacker to try and make up for going into the wrong gap or something like that?
Well, we try not to do that. We try and be in the right spot. There are times where a defensive lineman might get reached or cut out of his gap, where we have to make up for that on the fly. I would just say it's on the defensive end to play his correct gap, and we need to get him to do that.